The pulsating bass vibrated through the patio, a rhythmic counterpoint to the cacophony of laughter and splashing water. It was late afternoon, the kind of golden hour that made everything shimmer, including the endless parade of tanned limbs and designer swimsuits. My friend, Chloe, had outdone herself with this pool party, packing her backyard with enough beautiful people to stock a magazine spread. Carol, a proud and unyielding rebel against the mundane, surveyed the scene with a practiced, appreciative gaze. My eyes, usually sharp and discerning, felt like they weren't enough to take in all the beauty surrounding me, a delightful problem if you ask me. I drifted, a social butterfly with a mischievous glint, making small talk and enjoying the vibrant energy. But even amidst the dazzling display, my instincts, honed by years of appreciating the subtle nuances of female allure, felt a distinct pull. It wasn't the loudest laugh or the most flamboyant pose that caught my attention. It was a quiet corner, near the overflowing dessert table, where a figure sat somewhat apart, a small plate clutched in her hands. She was stunning, in a way that was almost understated. Her dark, almost midnight black hair cascaded in soft waves around a face that was, at that moment, entirely focused on a slice of strawberry shortcake. She wore a simple, elegant navy one-piece that, despite its modesty, accentuated the graceful curve of her back and the slender line of her shoulders. Her skin, even in the dappled sunlight, seemed to glow with a soft, natural luminosity. Each time she took a bite, her eyes, large and a captivating shade of hazel, would dart around, a quick, almost panicked survey of her surroundings, as if she were committing a clandestine act of dessert consumption. A flush, subtle but unmistakable, painted her cheeks. I'd never seen her before, and that alone was intriguing. My internal villain, the part of me that loved a good chase, a delicious challenge, began to stir. "Well, hello there, dessert thief," I purred, my voice low and playful, as I materialized beside her. She jumped, startling so violently that a tiny dollop of cream almost escaped her plate. Her head snapped up, those wide hazel eyes meeting mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of genuine surprise, mixed with a healthy dose of alarm. A deep blush, much more vibrant this time, spread from her neck upwards, staining her cheeks and even the tips of her ears.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was hungry," she stammered, her voice soft, almost a whisper, as she clutched the plate tighter. She immediately lowered her gaze, fixing it on her half-eaten cake as if it held all the answers to the universe. Her long eyelashes brushed against her flushed skin. She looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. "No need to apologize," I chuckled, a warm, inviting sound. "Though I must say, your stealth skills could use some work. A true dessert connoisseur never gets caught." I leaned a little closer, just enough to catch the faint, sweet scent of her perfume, something light, floral, completely different from the heady, musky scents permeating the rest of the party. "I'm Carol, by the way." She risked another quick glance, then looked away again, her fingers toying with the edge of her plate. "Melissa," she murmured, barely audible. "My friend, Chloe, she dragged me here. Said it would be good for me to get out." Her voice was laced with a hint of exasperation, but also a deep-seated shyness that was utterly captivating. The way her dark hair framed her face, partially obscuring her profile, only added to her allure. "Chloe, the benevolent dictator," I teased, enjoying the way a small, hesitant smile touched her lips before she quickly suppressed it. "So, Melissa, what's a beautiful, cake-loving creature like yourself doing hiding in the shadows when there's a whole party to enjoy?" I watched her closely, my eyes lingering on the delicate curve of her neck as she swallowed. Her blush deepened, and she shifted uncomfortably on the edge of the lounge chair. "I'm not really a party person," she admitted, her voice even softer now, almost pleading. Her gaze darted towards the gate, a clear desire to escape evident in her posture. She looked like a trapped bird, and a very pretty one at that. "Oh, I can see that," I said, a knowing smile playing on my lips. "But perhaps you just haven't found the right party, or the right person to enjoy it with." My eyes met hers again, and I held her gaze, a silent challenge, a promise. Her breath hitched almost imperceptibly. Tell me, Melissa, what do you enjoy? Besides, of course, the illicit consumption of delicious pastries. She actually let out a tiny, embarrassed laugh, a sound like wind chimes. Books, she confessed, her eyes still downcast, but a hint of a genuine smile in her voice. Quiet places. Art museums. Things like that. A woman of culture, I declared, my voice dripping with mock admiration. I knew it. You have that refined, lost in thought aura about you. I paused, letting the compliment hang in the air. You know, Melissa, a woman like you, with such discerning taste, shouldn't be spending her evenings hiding in corners. You should be out, experiencing all the wonderful things life has to offer, and perhaps sharing them with someone equally discerning. My gaze was direct, unwavering, a playful yet undeniably alluring challenge. Her blush intensified, and she picked at a loose thread on her swimsuit. Her fingers trembled slightly. I don't know what you mean, she mumbled, though her eyes flickered upwards, meeting mine for a fraction of a second, curiosity battling with her shyness. Oh, I think you do, I countered softly, my voice dropping to a near whisper, just for her. I leaned closer, reaching out a hand, not to touch her, but to casually pluck a stray crumb from her navy swimsuit, letting my fingers linger for a mere second near her collarbone. The contact, however brief, sent a jolt, a silent acknowledgement between us. But if you're truly stumped, perhaps I could offer a little guidance. Show you some of the less conventional delights the world has to offer. Her breath hitched again, and she finally looked up, her hazel eyes wide and a little dazed. There was a raw vulnerability in them, a nascent spark of something unfamiliar. She was clearly flustered, her mind racing, trying to process my words, my proximity, the suggestive undertones. The air around us crackled with a silent tension. I should probably go, she whispered, already trying to push herself up, a desperate attempt to flee this sudden, intoxicating current. Nonsense, I said, my voice firm but gentle, my hand reaching out, not to restrain her, but to lightly touch her arm, a gesture of reassurance mixed with a subtle claim. Her skin was surprisingly warm under my fingertips. You've barely touched your cake. And besides, I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to an even lower register. We haven't even exchanged numbers yet. How will I ever convince you to venture out of your quiet little world and into mine, if I don't have a way to reach you? My smile was unapologetically charming, a predatory curve that promised both danger and delight. She hesitated, her gaze fixed on my hand on her arm, then slowly, reluctantly, back to my eyes. The battle in her was palpable, the desire to escape versus a burgeoning, undeniable curiosity. After a long moment, a sigh escaped her lips, almost imperceptible. She didn't pull away. Fine, she breathed, her voice barely audible, pulling out her phone with a trembling hand. Just don't tell Chloe. A triumphant smile spread across my face. My lips are sealed, Melissa, I promised, taking her phone and quickly adding my number, my fingers brushing hers, sending another subtle jolt through the air. Consider this our little secret, and trust me, you're going to want to keep it. I handed her phone back, my gaze lingering on her flushed face, the way her eyes now held a spark of something new, something untamed. The sweet taste of victory was already on my tongue. She looked utterly bewildered and undeniably, wonderfully hooked. The following days were a delicate dance, a game of cat and mouse where the mouse was undeniably intrigued, and the cat savored every slow, deliberate move. Melissa's initial texts were brief, almost formal, like carefully worded diplomatic communiques. Thanks again for the other day, or hope you're having a good week. But my replies were anything but. I infused every message with a playful intimacy, a teasing invitation that subtly chipped away at her reserve. I'd send her a picture of a particularly obscure book I found, knowing her love for them, with a caption like, "Thought of you." Bet you devour this in one sitting, you literary fiend. Or a photo of a delicious-looking pastry from a local bakery. Found another secret pleasure. Care to be my accomplice? Her responses, initially stiff, began to soften, punctuated by hesitant emojis, a blushing face, a tiny book. I noticed the time between her replies shortened, and the content gradually gained a hint of her personality, a dry wit I found utterly charming. My internal monologue, a constant stream of strategy and observation, delighted in these small victories. She was curious, undeniably so, even if she wouldn't admit it to herself. One breezy Tuesday afternoon, after a particularly engaging exchange about the merits of fictional villains, I saw my opening. "Melissa," I typed, a smirk playing on my lips. "I have a dilemma. My wardrobe is screaming for a refresh, and I desperately need an aesthetic advisor with impeccable taste. And a penchant for quiet contemplation, of course." I waited, knowing the bait was perfectly set. Her reply came almost immediately, a small victory in itself. "I'm not sure I'm the best person for that, Carol. My fashion sense is mostly practical." "Nonsense," I fired back. "Practicality can be chic. Besides, I trust your eye more than anyone else's. And I promise, there will be no loud music, no splashing, and absolutely no unsolicited cake-eating observed from afar. Only the serene act of retail therapy, followed by an artisanal coffee. My treat, naturally." The pause was longer this time, almost agonizing. Then, "Okay," she typed just one word. "What time?" A triumphant grin spread across my face. Hook, line, and sinker. The mall, usually a chaotic assault on the senses, felt different with Melissa. She arrived precisely on time, dressed in a simple, well-fitting pair of dark jeans and a soft cream-colored sweater that somehow managed to look effortlessly elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, revealing the delicate curve of her jawline, and her eyes, though still holding a trace of nervousness, held a new spark of anticipation. "You clean up nicely, even for practical," I teased, offering a warm smile as I met her, purposefully making light physical contact, a gentle hand on her lower back to guide her into the first boutique. I could feel a subtle tremor under my palm. Her cheeks colored slightly. "You too," she mumbled, quickly looking away, but I caught the appreciative glance she cast over my outfit, a tailored blazer over a silk camisole and sleek trousers, my usual blend of casual confidence. We moved through the stores, a strange pair. I, draped in various fabrics, striking dramatic poses, soliciting her opinion with exaggerated appeals. She, initially hesitant, slowly started to offer genuine insights, her quiet observations proving remarkably perceptive. "That color washes you out, Carol," she'd say, or "this cut actually really suits your shoulders." Her voice, though still soft, gained a quiet authority when discussing aesthetics. I loved it. I deliberately chose items that required me to ask for her help. "Can you zip this up for me, Melissa? My arms are just not cooperating." Or, "Does this strap sit right? I can't quite see." Each time, her fingers would brush against my skin, fleeting moments that sent tiny sparks through the air, almost imperceptible, but undeniably present. I watched her closely, noting the slight flush that would appear on her neck, the way her breathing would subtly deepen. She was aware, undeniably. During a break at a bustling coffee shop, amidst the clatter of cups and the murmur of conversations, I leaned closer to her across the small table. "So, not a party person, Melissa," I began, my voice playfully conspiratorial. "You're surprisingly good at this. You have a natural eye. You should be a stylist." She took a sip of her latte, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of the cup. "It's different when it's just observing," she said softly, "and when I'm not the center of attention." But sometimes, Melissa, being the center of attention isn't so bad. Especially when it's the right kind of attention," I said, my gaze holding hers, warm and direct. Her eyes, those beautiful hazel depths, seemed to widen almost imperceptibly, a silent question forming within them. I saw a flicker of something new there, a nascent curiosity mixing with her innate shyness. I changed tactics slightly, shifting to a more personal note. Seriously, though, you're so observant. What do you see when you look at me, Melissa? Beyond the clothes, I mean. My voice was low, intimate, cutting through the coffee shop's ambient noise, making it feel like we were in our own bubble. Her cheeks bloomed with color again, and she fidgeted with the sugar packet. This was a deeper question, I knew. She took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought she might retreat entirely. But then, she met my gaze, her eyes surprisingly steady. "You're very confident," she said slowly, choosing her words with care. "And you seem to know exactly what you want. And you get it." A subtle, knowing smile touched her lips, a tiny admission of my earlier, dessert thief, tactics. "You also have a way of making people feel seen." My heart gave a little flutter at that last part. She did see me. "And what do you see that I want, Melissa?" I pressed gently, my voice still a soft invitation. "What do you think I'm trying to get?" Her gaze dropped to my lips, then flickered back to my eyes. The blush on her cheeks intensified. "I think you like a challenge," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the espresso machine. "And I think you like making people comfortable, even when they're not." There was a hint of self-awareness in her tone, a recognition of her own discomfort, and my deliberate attempts to ease it. "You're very astute," I murmured, my smile widening. "Almost as good as me." I leaned a little closer, lowering my voice further. "And you, Melissa, what do you want? What are you afraid to get?" She looked away, her gaze drifting to the window, lost in thought. A small sigh escaped her lips. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice thick with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. "I think I'm afraid of what I don't know." "Then perhaps," I said, my voice warm and laced with a promise, "it's time for us to discover it together." I reached across the table, my fingers gently brushing against hers, a fleeting, electric contact that spoke volumes. Her hand, initially stiff, subtly softened, her thumb almost imperceptibly caressing the back of my hand before she drew it back, her cheeks burning. The afternoon, ostensibly about shopping, had become something much more. Something quietly, delightfully dangerous. The brush of our hands across the coffee shop table lingered in the air, an unspoken question that hummed between us long after we left the mall. Melissa, though still reserved, had shed some of her initial defensiveness. She laughed more freely, her eyes sparkling with a subtle mischievousness when I teased her. My world, usually a whirlwind of self-assured pursuits, began to revolve around the nuanced signals she sent, the micro-expressions that betrayed her growing comfort, her burgeoning curiosity. My strategy, initially a playful conquest, had evolved. I was genuinely captivated. We found ourselves spending more and more time together. Our dates were always in her preferred settings, quiet art galleries where her insightful comments would surprise and delight me, long walks in botanical gardens where she would point out the intricate beauty of a hidden bloom, or cozy evenings at my apartment, ostensibly for movie nights, but truly an excuse for proximity. I carefully curated these experiences, ensuring each one chipped away at her carefully constructed walls, inviting her to step further into her own unacknowledged desires. One crisp autumn evening, a few weeks into our evolving connection, we were at my apartment. The city lights twinkled outside my panoramic window, a distant hum serving as background noise. We were halfway through an old French film, one of Melissa's recommendations, when she shifted on the plush sofa, pulling her knees to her chest. The soft glow of the screen cast shadows across her profile, highlighting the delicate arch of her nose and the slight pout of her lips as she concentrated on the subtitles. She looked utterly captivating, entirely at ease in my space. I had arranged the cushions on the sofa to create a subtle division, but as the evening progressed, the gap between us had steadily diminished. My leg now gently brushed against hers. I could feel the warmth of her skin through her soft, worn jeans. The air was thick with an unspoken anticipation, a delicious tension that was almost unbearable. "That actress is remarkable," Melissa murmured, her eyes still on the screen, but her voice held a new, softer quality. She is, I agreed, my voice a low rumble. But I find myself more captivated by the person beside me. Her head turned, slowly, her eyes meeting mine in the dim light. The film played on, forgotten. Her breath hitched, almost imperceptibly. The blush that had become so familiar to me now bloomed across her cheeks, a deeper hue this time. "Carol," she began, her voice a little shaky. I don't know what this is." I reached out, my fingers tracing the line of her jaw, feeling the sudden warmth of her skin. Her eyes fluttered closed for a brief moment at my touch, a silent surrender. "Does it need a name, Melissa?" I whispered, my thumb gently caressing her cheek. "Can it just be?" She opened her eyes, and they were wide, vulnerable, searching. "I've never felt like this before," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "It's confusing. And a little terrifying." Her honesty, raw and unguarded, was like a balm to my soul. "I know," I soothed, my voice laced with genuine understanding. "New things can be terrifying. But sometimes, Melissa, the most beautiful things are found just beyond the edge of our comfort zone." My eyes dropped to her lips, full and soft, then back up to meet her gaze, a silent question in mine. Her chest rose and fell with a soft sigh. Her gaze was locked onto mine, a silent conversation passing between us. I could see the internal battle waging within her, the years of conditioning, the fear of the unknown, warring with a burgeoning. She leaned in, almost imperceptibly, a silent invitation. I closed the remaining distance, my hand cupping her cheek, tilting her head slightly. My lips, soft and hesitant at first, found hers. The kiss was gentle, a tender exploration, a question more than a statement. Her lips were soft, yielding. I felt a jolt, a current that started deep within me and spread outward. Melissa's initial response was a faint gasp, a surprised intake of breath, her body stiffening for a fraction of a second. Then, slowly, tentatively, her lips softened under mine, a hesitant, almost imperceptible pressure in return. It was a hesitant dance, a silent acknowledgement of the uncharted territory we were entering. I tasted the subtle sweetness of her, the lingering hint of the herbal tea we'd shared earlier. The world outside the window, the half-finished film, all faded into insignificance. There was only Melissa, her softness against my lips, the trembling of her breath. I deepened the kiss, just slightly, my hand moving from her cheek to cup the back of her head, my fingers tangling in her soft hair. Her response was a small, almost inaudible whimper, and her hand, which had been resting on her knee, slowly, almost unconsciously, reached out and clutched the fabric of my shirt. Melissa's eyes, usually so guarded, were wide and a little dazed, her lips slightly parted, still glistening from our shared intimacy. A deep crimson flush had permanently settled on her cheeks, radiating a heat I could almost feel from a distance. "Wow," she breathed, her voice a fragile whisper, her hand still clutched in a crumpled knot on my shirt. Her gaze flickered around the room, as if trying to reorient herself, before settling back on my face, a maelstrom of confusion, fear, and a nascent wonder warring in their depths. I didn't press her, didn't push for words she wasn't ready to give. Instead, I simply brought my thumb to her lower lip, gently tracing its soft curve. "Wow, indeed," I murmured, my voice soft, reassuring. I could feel her pulse racing under my fingertips. She pulled back slightly, her hand finally releasing my shirt, but not entirely retreating. She shifted on the sofa, creating a small, almost imperceptible distance between us. Her gaze dropped to her hands, which she wrung together in her lap. I don't know what that was," she confessed again, her voice thick with emotion. I've never felt like that with anyone." My heart ached for her, for the palpable struggle within her. This wasn't just a kiss, it was an unraveling of her carefully constructed world. "It was a kiss, Melissa," I said gently, patiently, my voice unwavering. "And it felt pretty incredible to me. Did it not for you?" Her head snapped up, those hazel eyes brimming with a conflicting mix of emotions. "It did," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper, a raw, honest confession. "That's the terrifying part. It felt really good. And I don't understand why." I knew this was coming. This was the moment where her carefully held beliefs would clash with undeniable experience. "Sometimes, Melissa," I began, my voice soft but firm, "the heart knows things the mind hasn't quite caught up to yet. And sometimes, those things are beautiful, even if they're unexpected." I let my hand rest lightly on her knee, a comforting, anchoring presence. She took a shaky breath, her gaze still distant, lost in her own internal tempest. "My whole life," she started, her voice barely audible, "I've always assumed I'd marry a man, have a traditional life. It's just what you do." Her words were heavy with the weight of expectation, of societal programming. This is so far from anything I ever imagined." "And is that so bad?" I asked, my voice a gentle challenge. "To find something new, something that genuinely sparks joy and connection, even if it wasn't on your mental blueprint." I watched her closely, observing the subtle tightening of her jaw, the way her brows furrowed in concentration. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant city hum and the echoes of her internal battle. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, the careful processing, the slow, reluctant questioning of her own identity. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes clouded with a mix of confusion and a flicker of longing. I need to think," she whispered, her voice laced with an urgent plea for space. "I need some time to myself." My heart sank a fraction, but I understood. This was a monumental shift for her, a dismantling of her entire understanding of herself. Pushing would only make her retreat further. "Of course," I said, my voice steady, though a pang of disappointment resonated within me. "Take all the time you need, Melissa. But know this, I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, I'll be here." I squeezed her knee gently, then removed my hand, giving her the physical space she so desperately needed. She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, before slowly rising from the sofa. She still wouldn't meet my gaze directly, her eyes fixed somewhere on the floor. "I should go," she said, her voice still quiet, but with a new resolve. I walked her to the door, a silent sentinel. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, with the weight of that kiss, the promise it held, and the fear it had unleashed. As she slipped out into the cool night, she offered me one last, fleeting glance, a look that held confusion, yes, but also a raw, undeniable question, a spark of the wonder she'd confessed. Then she was gone, leaving me in the quiet expanse of my apartment, the lingering scent of her perfume a tantalizing reminder of the uncharted waters we had just dipped our toes into. I knew this wasn't the end. It was merely the pause before the next, even more exhilarating, chapter. The silence that followed Melissa's departure was deafening. My apartment, usually a haven of vibrant energy, felt suddenly vast and empty. The lingering scent of her perfume, once a sweet promise, now felt like a taunt, a ghostly reminder of the raw vulnerability she had shown me and the abrupt retreat that followed. I replayed the kiss, her hesitant response, the shocking admission of pleasure, and then her subsequent panic. It was a complex tapestry of emotions, and I found myself unexpectedly engrossed, almost obsessed, with unraveling each thread. I gave her space as promised. Days turned into a week, then stretched into a second, each marked by my deliberate restraint. My phone, usually a constant companion, lay largely untouched, a silent testament to my patience. It was agonizing, not reaching out, not sending one of my playful, teasing messages. My usual confidence was tempered by a genuine concern for her, a deep respect for the monumental internal shift she was undergoing. I understood the magnitude of what I had unwittingly, or perhaps very wittingly, started. This wasn't just about my desire, it was about her discovery of herself. During this period of quiet anticipation, my thoughts were almost entirely consumed by Melissa. I found myself thinking about her quiet strength, the way her eyes crinkled when she genuinely laughed, the surprising depth of her insights when she spoke about art or literature. I realized then, with a clarity that was almost startling, that this wasn't just a game for me anymore. My initial mischievous intent had blossomed into something real, something profound. I missed her presence, the gentle cadence of her voice, the subtle shifts in her expressions. Then, a text message. It wasn't from Melissa, but from Chloe. "Hey, you been ghosting Melissa? She's been a little quiet lately." My heart gave a hopeful lurch, then settled into a steady rhythm. Chloe's observation confirmed my theory. Melissa was still processing, still struggling, but she was also feeling my absence. A few days later, a soft vibration against my palm broke the silent vigil. It was a text from Melissa. My breath caught in my throat. "Carol." It read, short and to the point, just like her first texts. "Can we talk? Maybe get coffee?" Somewhere quiet, a wave of relief, so potent it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. "Anywhere you like, Melissa." I typed back immediately, my fingers flying. "Name the place and time. My treat." We met at a small, independent coffee shop with soft lighting and a calming jazz playlist, a place I knew she'd appreciate. She was already there when I arrived, seated at a secluded table in the corner, nursing a steaming mug. She looked a little paler than usual, a subtle tension etched around her eyes, but there was also a fragile strength in her posture. She wore a simple, soft gray sweater that made her look both vulnerable and incredibly beautiful. Her dark hair was loose, framing her face, and as I approached, her eyes, those captivating hazel eyes, met mine directly. They held a different kind of intensity now, less fear, more quiet, searching determination. "Hey," I said softly as I sat opposite her, a warm, reassuring smile on my face. I resisted the urge to reach out, to touch her, respecting her need for space. "Hi," she replied, her voice still quiet, but steady. She took a slow sip of her coffee, her gaze unwavering. "Thank you for giving me space. I needed it." "Of course," I responded, my voice gentle. "No pressure, Melissa. Whatever you need." She took a deep breath, a visible steeling of her resolve. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice gaining a little more strength with each word. "About everything. About what happened. About us." She paused, her gaze dropping to her hands, which were clasped tightly around her mug. "I don't understand it. It goes against everything I've ever known, everything I've ever expected for myself." I remained silent, letting her speak, letting her navigate her own labyrinth of thoughts and emotions. "But," she continued, her voice softer now, almost a whisper, "when I try to imagine not seeing you anymore, not talking to you, it feels wrong. It feels like a hole. And after that kiss." She trailed off, a blush once again coloring her cheeks, but this time it was laced with a hint of something else, a burgeoning acceptance. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how it felt, how you felt. Her gaze, hesitant at first, slowly lifted to meet mine. There was a raw honesty in her eyes, a quiet courage that took my breath away. "I'm still scared, Carol," she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "Scared of what this means. Scared of what people will say. Scared of myself for feeling this way." I reached across the table then, slowly, deliberately, and covered her clasped hands with mine. Her fingers, initially tense, slowly relaxed under my touch. "It's okay to be scared, Melissa," I said, my voice soft but firm, a steady anchor for her. "It's okay to not have all the answers right now. But what if, just for a moment, we stopped trying to understand it and just felt it? What if we just explored this together?" Her eyes, those beautiful, expressive hazel eyes, searched mine, seeking reassurance, seeking a promise. I saw a flicker of her old shyness, but now it was intertwined with a burgeoning curiosity, a nascent desire to embrace the unknown. The quiet storm within her was beginning to settle, replaced by a cautious, yet undeniable, hope. She squeezed my hand, a silent response, a fragile but definite step forward. The space she had desperately needed had allowed her to confront her fears, and in doing so, had subtly but irrevocably drawn her closer. Melissa's hesitant squeeze of my hand was a silent, profound affirmation. It wasn't a declaration of undying love, but it was a willingness to explore a fragile crack in the wall she had built around herself. That single gesture, more than any verbal confession, spoke volumes. My heart swelled with a quiet triumph, not just for bending her, but for witnessing her brave, initial steps into a landscape she never knew existed within her. From that coffee shop conversation, our connection deepened rapidly, shedding the last vestiges of polite acquaintance and blossoming into an undeniable intimacy. The space she had taken had, ironically, drawn us closer, forging a bond of shared vulnerability and unspoken understanding. We spent countless hours simply talking, peeling back layers of past experiences, fears, and unspoken dreams. She revealed details of past emotional baggage, subtle wounds that had kept her guarded, a fear of true connection that she hadn't even recognized until now. I listened, truly listened, offering solace and unwavering support, showing her a kind of fierce, protective empathy she admitted she'd never encountered. My apartment became our sanctuary. We cooked together, filling the space with the comforting aroma of herbs and spices, our hands brushing as we reached for ingredients. We read side by side on the sofa, sometimes silently, sometimes pausing to share a passage that resonated. These quiet moments, filled with unspoken tenderness, were infinitely more potent than any grand gesture. One evening, after a particularly intense discussion about a novel that delved into complex family dynamics, Melissa was curled into the corner of my sofa, a soft blanket draped over her. The lamplight cast a warm glow on her face, highlighting the thoughtful furrow of her brow. She looked utterly beautiful, utterly comfortable, utterly herself in my space. "It's strange," she murmured, her voice soft, almost a sigh. "Reading about those characters and talking to you, it's like I'm finally seeing things, seeing myself, in a different light." She paused, her gaze distant, lost in her own thoughts. I spent so long trying to fit into a mold, trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be. I never realized how much it was constricting me. I reached out, gently stroking the dark hair away from her forehead. Her skin was soft and warm. "And what do you see now, Melissa?" I asked, my voice a soft invitation. "When you look at yourself, through this new light?" She turned her head, her hazel eyes meeting mine, brimming with a raw, nascent emotion. "I see someone who's capable of more than she ever imagined," she whispered, her voice thick. "Someone who's been hiding but doesn't want to hide anymore." Her hand, almost unconsciously, reached out and settled on my arm, her fingers gently gripping my sleeve. "And I see someone who's incredibly grateful for you, Carol, for showing her a way out of the shadows." This wasn't just about breaking her walls. It was about her finding her own strength, her own truth. "You found your own way, Melissa," I corrected gently, my gaze unwavering. "I just helped you see the path." Her eyes filled with unshed tears, shimmering in the soft light. "No," she said, her voice stronger now, more certain. "You are the path, Carol. You pull me out." She leaned in, her gaze dropping to my lips, a silent, unequivocal invitation. This kiss was different from the first. There was no hesitation, no fear, only a surging wave of raw emotion and undeniable desire. Her lips, soft and pliant, met mine with a newfound urgency, a desperate, yearning hunger. I could feel the rapid beat of her heart against my chest, mirroring my own. The world outside my apartment faded into a distant hum. There was only the warmth of her body, the softness of her lips, the urgent press of her hands, and the profound, electric current that flowed between us. This kiss was an affirmation, a surrender, a beautiful, unreserved plunge into the depths of a love she never knew she was capable of, and one I realized I had yearned for, without knowing it, for a very long time. It was a silent promise of everything that was yet to come, a delicious, aching anticipation of the journey we were just beginning to truly embark on together. The morning light, soft and hesitant, filtered through the blinds, painting stripes across my bedroom. I woke slowly, a sense of profound peace settling over me, a feeling I hadn't truly experienced before. Melissa was nestled beside me, her head tucked under my chin, her breath soft and even against my skin. Her dark hair fanned out across my pillow, a luxurious contrast to the pale linen. This was a new kind of quiet, a different kind of stillness, far more profound than any solitude I had ever known. I watched her for a long moment, simply marveling at her beauty, her serene expression in sleep. The guardedness that had once defined her was gone, replaced by a soft vulnerability that moved me deeply. I thought of the shy, cake-eating woman I'd encountered at the pool party, and the transformation that had unfolded was nothing short of miraculous. She had not only opened herself to me, but she had opened herself to a part of her identity she never knew existed, a boundless capacity for love and passion. Her eyelids fluttered, and then slowly, her hazel eyes opened, blinking against the light. She looked at me, and a slow, beautiful smile bloomed on her face, a smile that reached her eyes, crinkling them at the corners. There was no trace of fear, no lingering confusion, only warmth and a profound, quiet joy. "Morning," she whispered, her voice husky with sleep, yet brimming with a newfound confidence. "Morning, beautiful," I replied, my voice equally soft, my fingers gently tracing the line of her arm. "Sleep well?" She nodded, snuggling closer. "Better than I have in years," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "It's amazing to wake up and feel this." Her gaze searched mine, clear and unwavering. "I never knew this was possible, Carol. This kind of connection." "It's real, Melissa," I assured her, my voice thick with emotion. "Every single bit of it." Our days quickly settled into a rhythm of shared discovery and deepening intimacy. Melissa, once so averse to social gatherings, found a quiet strength in her newfound self-acceptance. She still preferred intimate settings, but she no longer hid. When we went out, her hand would subtly find mine, her fingers intertwining with a silent confidence that warmed me to my core. She met my friends, a small, close-knit circle who welcomed her with genuine warmth, recognizing the profound change she brought to my life. We spent an afternoon visiting her family, a quiet, almost formal affair that she navigated with a surprising grace. Her parents, traditional and somewhat reserved, observed me with a mixture of politeness and barely veiled curiosity. Melissa, however, was resolute. She held my hand firmly as we left, a silent, powerful statement of her commitment. Her internal narrative, once riddled with fear of their disapproval, now contained a growing conviction that her happiness was hers to define. The subtle changes in her demeanor, her quiet assertiveness, spoke volumes about the shift within her. She was no longer seeking permission. She was simply being. Our love story, once a mischievous pursuit on my part, had evolved into a profound partnership. Melissa, the quiet observer, had taught me a depth of patience and a nuanced understanding of vulnerability I hadn't known I possessed. I, the confident bender, found myself softened, grounded, discovering a tender, protective side I rarely showed. We were a beautiful contradiction, a vibrant interplay of differences that ultimately created a stronger, more complete whole. Melissa's journey from silent resistance to passionate acceptance had been a testament to the transformative power of love. The woman who once feared the unknown now embraced it with a quiet fierceness, her eyes shining with a radiant courage. And I, the unchained fiction writer, found myself writing the most compelling story of all, our own. Her past trauma, once a shadowy burden, was no longer a weight but a landscape from which she had emerged stronger, more empathetic, more alive. As I looked at her, nestled beside me in the warmth of our shared bed, a profound sense of gratitude washed over me. This love, unexpected and utterly intoxicating, had not just reshaped Melissa, it had irrevocably changed me. It was a love that healed, that challenged, and that, most importantly, set us both truly free. The journey had been exhilarating, sometimes terrifying, but every step had led us here, to this quiet, undeniable truth. This was not just a chapter, it was the beginning of our forever, written in the indelible ink of two souls finally finding their way home in each other's arms.